crimes of passion are committed by men all the time. The crime was placed on her. I don't understand that when there is a physical altercation between Pedro and Alberto.
I am not afraid of the storm that comes my way. When it hits, it shakes me to the core and makes me stronger than before. Oh, I think it might wash away tonight. Awaken from this never-ending fight. It takes more than meets the eye. This war we're fighting is not just riding. Hey, oh, here comes the danger up in this club. When we get started, man, we ain't gonna stop. We gon' turn it out till it gets too hot. Everybody sing, hey, oh, tell 'em to
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Yes, it's evening. Hopefully, you are watching this at a more convenient time. As you guys know, I'm very impromptu, so this has came by way of a lot of planning. So here I am. But as always, I try to give you guys good content that you don't find other places. So that takes time to research, and I appreciate the time I take to make the content, and I hope you appreciate it as well. My name is Miss Oshun, and welcome to the Game of Dragons, where we fly higher than mundane conversation. So let's get into it. And if you clicked on this video, you know why you clicked on this video, because we are talking about the infamous Rosa Peral. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, or Peral. I don't know how to enunciate her last name, but this is the famous case that was tried in, I think it was Barcelona, Spain, in reference to the Netflix series Burning Body. And it was also a documentary also that aired on Netflix as well, about this case. And from my understanding, this all happened during the same year that this case was tried, unfortunately. And I will get to that in a minute. But what I want to do is just introduce everyone to this case, generally speaking, so we understand my general premise, which is that Spain has a historical problem with gender issues as well as racism, obviously, and it played out in this case. And I do plan on flushing that out. Now, granted, I'm not going to go through the entire case and every single process of it that I felt was, or I could prove that was unconstitutional for real. But let me be clear about something. I am from the United States, and I do not live in Spain. I've never been to Spain. Closest I've came to Spain is Germany. And yeah, Germany, that's the closest I've came to Spain. And it's a country that I'm not familiar with in terms of its law code, but I am familiar with what is fair and what is biased. And given that the films that was made around this trial was produced with American dollars, and became big based on American audiences, I think that as an American, it affords me the opportunity to share my perspective on this. And that's what I'm going to do. So without further ado, I'm just going to give you guys a basic breakdown of this case. This case essentially started with the finding of a burned vehicle with a body inside of it. And that body was the body of an officer by the name of Pedro. Now, it gets very complicated, so I don't want to overcomplicate this. But essentially, when that body was found, they concluded that the person persons rather, that had killed this individual, Pedro, was his current wife, which was Rosa. Her name was Rosa. And they insinuated that this was a partner type of crime, where one or both parties committed some sort of act in it, and the other person was a man named Alberto, or Albert, In English we say Albert, who was her ex-lover / current lover, so to speak. Okay. And so the prosecution felt that this was a crime of passion because Rosa was married to Pedro and wanted to be with Alberto, and Pedro was in the way. And in order to get him out the way, they had to kill him. That's a bunch of hogwash, but we'll get into it. And essentially, because Rosa at the time had another case going in terms of revenge porn from someone that she had, obviously been involved with prior to, that didn't help. But that goes to the point that I'm making tonight. The outcome of that case and this case running concurrently, and her relationship with her children's father. And so essentially this case was painted with promiscuity, right? Versus the evidence of, well, who killed who, right? And essentially there was no evidence that this woman and or her, her boyfriend killed this man. There was no evidence of it. There was circumstantial evidence that they felt helped the case for the prosecution. And I'm not going to lie, some of it was pretty reasonable, right? But then I'm going to say, under the circumstances, we have to be honest. There was no evidence to put this woman in jail. And what I'm going to say is this: the outcome of her other case, the reason why her other case was dropped, should have been the same reason why this trial was dropped. And what I don't understand is Spain in general. But what I do know about Spain is that historically Spain has not been a country that has been fair to women. Historically, they haven't really been fair to too many people, frankly speaking. Shout out to the Spanish version of everything in this world that got conquered by Spain, simply because it wasn't Spain. We have that. But this is genuinely what happened. And what I'll do is I'll try to link maybe something in the description box so that you guys can watch the full documentary. It's about maybe 2 hours and some change long. But basically it goes through her phone call back from, prison, speaking about what she wants people to know about her. And then it gets into the prosecution's explanation of the trial, which is very interesting, to be honest with you. But what makes this case so elusive is the fact that with all of these people involved are police officers. And all of these people are police officers. She's a police. All of the boyfriends are police. Everybody is in law enforcement. Okay. So this makes it very hard to consider who's right and who's wrong, who's involved and who's not, because police officers, are trained in criminology. And so having a firsthand training in how criminals think, how the law actually processes cases, if they were the criminals, they would understand more so than the average criminal how to get away with it. So that's what makes this case really hard to judge. But, I felt like today I was Solomon, right? And I said, you know what? I found the smoking gun in how to figure this out. So I'm just going to go through just the timeline, right, of what happened. So, all right. So Miss Rosa is a police officer, and she's kind of involved with people on the job, right? Which isn't favorable on her as a woman to the general society, because there is still this idea that men can be promiscuous and women can't, right? But in her case, it backfired. And when she essentially wasn't involved with this individual, Oscar, okay, which is his name, I don't remember the last name, so don't kill me. But when she was about 23 years old, there was this revenge porn that got sent out from her phone in terms of hacking to all of her colleagues, right? And what was interesting about this is she took that to jail. She took that to court. And that stayed in court up until the time of this new trial, which was almost like 17 years later, right? And it just so happened to have, been tried during another case that she had, which I know was on purpose. Now, what's interesting is that this individual, Oscar, admitted to the revenge porn, right? Which is what the trial was about. However, the courts did not find him to be guilty of anything because even though he admitted to being the perpetrator of the crime, there was no physical evidence. We will come back to that, okay? Then she started dealing with a guy named Ruben a little later on. She fell in love with Ruben, felt like he was everything to her. They were young. They had 2 children together. And then soon after having the children, you know what happened? The relationship went to hell. And then she calls the relationship toxic. That's how she describes it. So that relationship dissolved once she met Alberto. Now, Alberto made her feel alive, right? However, Alberto, as she's divorcing Ruben or getting away from Ruben, Alberto is making her feel alive. She's discovering new activities that she likes to do and all of that. But then she discovers he doesn't want anything to do with children. Like he says, he doesn't want to be a stepdad. He doesn't want to care for children. He doesn't want to be a father. None of that. And so she felt like, you know what? I don't have anybody right now. Let me just get what I can get out of this relationship, i.e. vis-a-vis friends with benefits. You understand? So then while she's just dealing with him on a sexual level, you see what I'm saying? Obviously, this case is still going on, right? With the revenge porn. Now, with 3 guys in. Then she meets Pedro. Now, Pedro was everything that she wanted. He was a police officer. He understood the lifestyle. He loved children. He had children of his own. We'll come back to that. And he really liked her. So they ended up getting married and moving in together. And it was a very family-oriented type of circumstance with them. They did trips together. You can tell he was really into spending time with the kids and being in that home environment. Because, sometimes with single fathers, right, they don't get the chance to have that home life that they want with a woman and having children in the house, because it's always like the shared custody thing. So it sounded like and looked like from the tapes, the home videos, that he really was enjoying his relationship with her. And it sounded like from her, she was enjoying her relationship with him. However, when she started seeing him, Alberto found out. Now, obviously, and I'm a woman, I know, she was having sexual relations with Alberto, but she knew that wasn't going anywhere. So she started seeing Pedro. Pedro looked like, this was promising. But while she's trying to figure out if Pedro is really the one and all of that, she's still seeing Alberto. She ends up getting with Alberto in terms of living with him. I don't think she actually married him. But she started getting with him more seriously. However, she hadn't quite let Alberto go on the sexual end. So while she's trying to phase out one guy into another, she's in between. Now, what made this interesting was that she was phasing this out because she understood that Alberto didn't really want the sex to stop. So she was trying to kind of like let it go slowly. But then he found out somehow about her relationship with Pedro. And so he confronts her about it, and he's like really upset. And I mean, they get into this big argument. Obviously, he calls her a bunch of, derogatory names, and that's what that is, right? Now, this is where things get real complicated. If you're dealing with a girl and it's just sex, she knows it's just sex. Here's the thing. When a woman knows it's just sex, it's just sex. Somehow or another, he is thought to be committing a crime of passion to have her, because the new boyfriend is in the way. Now, all she has to do essentially is Let the boyfriend go. If the relationship was that great between her and Alberto, relationship should have been, cut short because it's so great. But somehow, I guess the narrative is he found out that she was cheating on him with Pedro, the new guy. So now he's going to try to get her back by killing Pedro so that he can have her. But she's already happily in a relationship with the other guy. Why would she assist him in killing the guy that she actually is involved with, that she actually likes, that wants children with her, that enjoys her children, right? Like, why would she do that? Why is he in the way? There is no such thing as someone being in the way of you being with someone. That's not what that is. But the truth of the matter is, Alberto had a personal interaction with Pedro outside of the girl, outside of Rosa, and this was recorded in the courts. This was recorded, and the two men didn't like each other. There was people noticing that she was dealing with him, calling him, saying, "Hey, she showed up to the job party with so and so," things like that. And so essentially, suddenly, she's inside of these conversations with him, and we really don't know what's going on. There's these strange emails that's taking place. You understand? That doesn't match the circumstance, and that's what I found interesting. Not so much what was there, but what wasn't there. Someone that is trying to build a relationship with someone else is obviously trying to let go, right? And it seemed that she was trying to let go of her relationship with Alberto, but she made it clear that she was afraid to do so quickly because of what she still was currently in court for. And she made it clear that the police department was something that did not help her in terms of being with these men and trying to separate, and they feel like access to her body is their right, and they'll threaten her. And she did receive threatening calls behind that revenge porn thing, and now the same thing with this. So she's making sense in terms of why she did what she did, in terms of why was she in contact with him on a particular day, what was going on here, what was going on there. To me, I believed her when she said that she was afraid to really let Alberto go like clean because he works with her. Obviously there can be more revenge porn going on, probably. There can be more rumors she can lose her job. He could possibly hurt her. They both own firearms, obviously. They both know how to cover up a crime. Let's be clear. And so this is what made it so interesting to me, that when she said, "I was afraid to say something," we can point to other cases where women are police officers and things happen and they're afraid to say something because they feel like, you know what, let me just let this go. I just want my job. Things like that, right? And so the reason why that was such a problem with the prosecution was because the prosecution said, well, listen, you're a police officer. You had power somehow. Why didn't you report when Pedro went missing, right? And based on what was said, she made it clear that he came to her house the day of, or the night of the murder, and he looked like he had did something, and he wanted her phone, and there was this issue of bleach being clean, him telling her to clean something or herself with some bleach or whatever, the house with some bleach, and he forced his way in the house. And somehow her children was in the house too. And so, I'm like, okay, so why are you in this woman's house and her children are home and Pedro lives there? That to me, I'm be honest with you, I put myself in the circumstance and I'm like, I kind of believe her that you did a crime, knew that if you called her while you were doing the crime or a little bit before, and you caused the conversation to happen, she doesn't know what's going on. You're just calling her. You could be calling her, harassing her, but it looks like she's in connection with you. And then something happens to Pedro. And then suddenly your phone is pinging that you and her are together or in close proximity the same day, even if she didn't even know where you were. Like, even if she didn't even know you was in the house, the phones is pinging off of the cell phone towers that you and her are together on the relatively the same day that this man went missing, or whatever the case may be. So, because the body wasn't found the same day. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, you want me to believe that this woman went and committed a crime of killing a man and then putting his body in the man that she's involved with, right? That loves her children, that she just a couple days, literally about 4 days before, was on a family vacation with, put his body, killed him, put his body in a trunk, drove him someplace, lit him on fire, came back with her children, who was not with anybody, by the way, came back with her kids and put her kids to sleep. The same guy that just did this is in the house and they're just talking about stuff. Just talking while the kids are asleep. Like, I mean, physiologically, sure, she could have had her kids, I don't know, wait for her on a bus stop till she came back after killing the guy. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. That physically, there's a lot of things that can happen. But I just didn't believe that. I believed her story that, yeah, she went to the market with her kids. She was in a phone conversation with him, as she said she would be, because him and her were in a sexual relationship. So there should be calls coming back and forth. If she's trying to let him go, there should be calls. You see what I'm saying? I've been in a circumstance like that where I've had to let someone down easy and I didn't want to let them down hard, so that they could like feel like, you know, maybe, I don't know, anxious about what's going on and get raw. I've been there. Maybe not to that degree, because I mean, police officers, that's a whole nother level right there. But well, maybe not. Never mind. But anyway, when she explained that whole circumstance of when she came in contact with him physically at her house, I believe that it was an intruder circumstance. Now, what else made me believe her, and again, you can watch the documentary to understand my points here, is when the prosecution told her that day before, right? Not that same day, but the day before, there was calls that went back and forth between her and Pedro. Obviously missed calls, and then there was calls where she picked up, I guess. And they found an audio recording of her that had left a message, a voice message to somebody, right? And she didn't put a name on it. She put like a little pet name on it. She used to say, "No, dummy, that's okay. You know, I know what I'm doing." Like she would say these little words to people, so there's not a name on it, right? Like pet name. And she had said that basically, hey, something is okay. I think we should do it. Let's take our daughters up to this. She said something. And she was talking about her taking the children up to wherever she was at. And she made it clear, at least according to the state's attorney that she left that message to a man for them to put their daughters together and go someplace. She didn't say, let's take my daughters. She said, let's take our daughters, right? Now, mind you, Alberto don't have children. Pedro, the guy that died, had children who she was living with their kids. So, but somehow the state's attorney looked at that and said, but you talked to Alberto twice that day. This man is calling you back to back. Like, was the message for him? And she said the message was for Pedro, but they didn't want to accept that, even though Pedro doesn't have any children. He said, well, what is the it that you guys was going to do? And she said that she doesn't remember exactly what the it was, but obviously it wasn't going to kill someone with kids. Like, seriously. I kind of believe that. Now, they couldn't match exactly the phone situation in terms of the audio recording. I don't know why, a technology issue. But again, there was no evidence that this was to Alberto, that she was planning anything. There's calls going back and forth, as it should be, if she's already admitted that she is in a sexual relationship with him. She's trying to stop it, but she can't really stop it. He don't want to stop it. And she's in between like this, right? Because essentially she got found out that she was with Pedro. So now this guy is saying, listen, I don't care if you with Pedro or not. You're going to keep screwing me. That's what you're going to do, or else. Now, what she described that happened was that he came to her house with another weapon in addition to his firearm. And she was with her children. And she's by herself, obviously. And I don't know where Pedro is at the moment. This is the night that he went missing. So she didn't know, according to her, she didn't know what happened. She's just in the house by herself with the kids. Now, I can't speak for what happened on the phone with her and Alberto. All I know is this guy seems like he's harassing her. If Pedro lives at that address, what are you doing in his house? Seriously, if you guys are just having sex and you know she lives there, you're telling me she invited you over to have sex to her house where her man who lives there should be at the time you're there. That's when he should have been there. While the kids are there, you're over there too. Like, something just wasn't right about that. And I'll be honest with you, like, I don't want it to be like, okay, it's a bunch of anecdotal experience. But honestly, when you're judging a case, you have to judge the case based on the reality that you're talking about. We're not talking about a man that knew her children. We're not talking about a man that came over at a time when he should have came over. She's saying you came over and you look like you did something because you were telling me, give me your phone. And she said she threw her phone and he took the phone. Now, whatever happened that day with the phone, he knew, hey, he has the phone. So if he's calling his own phone with her phone, he already understands as a police officer that this is what the case is going to look for, phone conversations, right? So if she didn't know what happened to Pedro, all she know is he's over the house. She's already afraid of him. He says, give me your phone. She throws the phone, tells him to get out. He uses the phone to do whatever. Somehow he leaves. She doesn't report it because, one, report what? She didn't see a crime. Report what? That he came over? They're gonna say, why was he over there? If she's gonna say, oh, I'm sleeping with him, well, why are you reporting that he came to your house? You don't want him there anymore. You wanna file an ex parte order or something like that for you people in America that know what ex parte orders are. Like, what are you trying to do? And then that would put her in a bad light at her job, which obviously is a career job, so she's not trying to lose it. And so there's a lot of reasons why at the time she wouldn't have reported anything going on, at least that day. Now, after a few days, she's like, okay, what happened to Pedro? But clearly there's phone conversations happening between her and him. I suspect, now she didn't say this, but I suspect that those phone conversations involved her knowing at some point that Pedro had been killed. Now, how he had been killed, I don't know. But I can accept that maybe, just maybe, she was told Pedro is dead and you're next if you open your mouth, or your children are next. And trust me, it's like trying to protect your children and go to work too against someone and not say what's happening because you know you're going to be perceived as a promiscuous woman and no one's going to believe you. Come on. Like, that's realistic over there. However, I'm understanding this from the American side. People in Barcelona probably do not think like that. I don't know. But one thing I do know is that this circumstance would have never, and I mean never, made the light of day in America. Like, not even the light of day. There wasn't one shred of evidence that placed this woman at the scene. There wasn't one shred of evidence that placed this woman buying, kerosene, extra kerosene. There wasn't no video footage of her leaving her house somehow during the night, when that vehicle went missing. That, the street cameras and stuff like that. They couldn't pull no footage up nowhere. They couldn't find anything on her credit cards. They couldn't find anything on the phone towers to show that she went out there to drive the car out there. Like, it was literally nothing. And this is what drew me to this case. Like, literally, there was nothing there to find her guilty of anything other than the fact that you had sex with two men at the same time. So obviously you wanted one of them dead because you couldn't be with the other one without killing one. But somehow she's supposed to be this Jezebel that picks up guys and let them go. Why does she need to kill anybody? I could see if the case was being made simply against Alberto, that you wanted that woman by any means. And when you found out that she didn't want you and you already had a problem with Pedro, you went and you unalived Pedro because you wanted to get back at her and you wanted to disrupt whatever she had because your ego was struck. Now, I can believe that. Crimes of passion are committed by men all the time over women. But the fact that the crime was placed on her, I don't understand that when there is a physical altercation between Pedro and Alberto. Like, I just didn't understand that. Like, there was nothing there. Now, the reason why I want to go back to the revenge porn, that case that happened several years before this, right? That just kind of lagged out until this specific year, is because in the revenge porn case, like I said, there was literally no evidence. Literally no evidence, right? So, but they had a confession. Now, the confession was not enough for them to convict the guy who sent out that revenge porn to those officers of her and him and stuff like that. And that's a federal crime over there, right? Even though he admitted to doing it, that was not enough for them to put him in jail or even fine this man. However, do you see how when it was a man, even if they had a confession, they're not going to put him in jail unless they have physical evidence to go along with that confession. They're not going to do it. But with her, they didn't have a confession. They didn't have any evidence. Like in his case, there was no circumstantial evidence. It was clear that you and her was in that video. Why was she sending video footage of her and you to all of her superiors and her colleagues? Why would she be doing that? Like, seriously, that doesn't make any sense, even if we want to stretch our imagination. So what it did for me is it told me that that case was trying her for being promiscuous according to their standards, not whether or not she killed Pedro. They could care less, honestly, in Spain, whether or not Pedro had died by the hand of Alberto or somebody else, or her. They could care less. They just wanted a juicy story to run with. And the state's attorney, in my opinion, as much as he tried to say, well, somebody killed this woman, and I feel that the crumbs lead back to her, the crumbs did not lead back to her. It just didn't. There was no crumbs that led back to her. The only thing that led back to her is what came out of her mouth, which is, I'm in a relationship with this man. He has children. I have children. We work. Somehow, the guy that I was just having a fling with found out. I was trying to phase that out. Couldn't phase it out. Them two got into it. And then next thing you know, this guy is calling me, demanding that I speak to him. And then he comes over my house one night and demands my phone, has a weapon with him, looks like he's going to do something. My kids are there. I don't want no trouble. So I don't say anything simply because I'm afraid there's too much on me right now. And and the state's attorney is telling me, this means that you killed Pedro. Not the guy, not the angry ex that doesn't want to let go. That then already claimed that she was a hoe. Not him. Her. So, I found it disheartening that she was on trial for promiscuity, according to them, which it wasn't promiscuity. She was being forced, in a sense, to maintain a sexual relationship with this man when that's not what she wanted to do, just so that she wouldn't create a bigger issue for her current case that was going on with that revenge porn from another man, and also mess up her career, with the police department. And so I when I seen this and I seen that they gave her 25 years to life, my heart dropped because she didn't go to trial for what she did. She went to trial for being a woman. That's what she went to trial for. Because, and I'll be honest with you, I was glad to be an American when I seen this trial. Because truth be told, again, in America, you're innocent until proven guilty, right? Even though America plays games, innocent until proven guilty. Over there, it was you're guilty until proven innocent, and that was very aggravating for me. The news outlets, there was a movie, they were just all over the place. One of the people that wrote an article about her said that she was a stripper. And he later came back and recounted, saying that he felt bad about doing that because he was just trying to get his article read. And he just needed something to say about her that was juicy to get people reading. And this is what happened. Called her a stripper. Meanwhile, there was nothing she did, was not a stripper. She was an upstanding police officer. So, you know, and then there was the movie that was made about her. At the time, she was actually on trial. And then there was the documentary that was made right after. So I'm sitting here like, are you kidding me? Like, there was so much going on, like, during the trial that would have biased any jury. I don't understand how that trial didn't get kicked, simply because of the bias that was injected into the jury. Because the jury shouldn't have been allowed to watch any media pertaining to that case. However, we all know that they did. It was everywhere. It was on Netflix. It was on the news. It was everywhere. In the newspapers. It was kind of hard not to come into some sort of propaganda around this case. And so, you know, it was very disheartening for me to see how that case played out and how she basically got the shit under the stick, to be honest with you. When it came to justice, there was no justice. Whoever killed this guy got away with it. Now, if I say, well, let me entertain the fact that she killed him, my question would have to be, and this is just a logical question, what's her motivation? Because he wouldn't move out. He loved her so much he wanted to take care of the kids, even though she had cheated on him. So she needed him dead. Really? The children's father wasn't even that good to her. Why would she want this man's dead? Like, seriously. You know, she was having such a great relationship with Alberto, who didn't want her children, who didn't want her, just wanted to have sex with her. Okay. She killed Alberto because that was a better option. Are you kidding me? Really? I'm trying to think of another reason why she would have killed Alberto. Because Alberto said that he would, I don't know, tell everybody at the police station that she was cheating on him with Alberto. How would that be the case when the word was she was cheating on Albert? She was cheating on Pedro with Alberto. Why would that be the case when word is she now with Pedro? She used to, you know, mess around with Alberto. So why would Pedro now want to tell her, oh, I'm going to tell people that you sleeping around? People already think she's sleeping around. Why would he think that? That's the reason why he got issues with Alberto. Him and Alberto then already had a confrontation. Basically, Alberto speeded past one of his little checkpoints, and he stopped him. And then there was this, you know, this physical sort of thing that kind of happened between them. You know how men are. But that's what happened. And so this is what I'm saying. Like, this was such a bad case that I just had to just like speak on it, even if only for a little while. And usually I go for a minute when it comes to gathering evidence as far as the case is concerned. But with this case, I'm gonna be honest with you, it was clear that it had nothing to do with evidence. There was no evidence. Even circumstantial evidence didn't make any sense. You know, the prosecutor wants to harp on the fact that she used a term of endearment that she uses with a lot of guys and say, well, you know, we don't know who you were talking to. You could have been talking to Alberto to possibly plan the killing of this man. And it's like, or she could have been talking to Pedro about taking their daughters someplace, like it said. This was just sad, you know. And like I said, you guys might want to watch that documentary. It will throw you, because even with the documentary, it was a little skewed. Like they kind of showed her a certain way. They had like reenactments that just made her look bad. It wasn't the truth of the matter. It just made her look bad. And the movie, good mother. Like I was like, so you're really gonna paint her as an emotionless deadbeat mother? Really? Okay. Okay, deadbeat mother. Um, like seriously. Now, just as a caveat, Alberto wasn't on trial, even though the state's attorney said that his theory was that both of them committed the crime. He attests that Rosa said this guy is the one that killed him, and killed him on his own based on her own testimony, what she knew. And then Alberto says, no, she killed him, and we did it together, but she did it, right? Then the state's attorney doesn't believe either of them. He has his own theory, which is it's just her. And Alberto kind of was involved, but this is why Alberto isn't on trial. This is the crazy stuff right here. And the fact that Alberto, as a man, can say, she helped me, she's involved, but somehow the person on trial is just her, that tells you that Spain got a lot of problems. Okay? Spain got a lot of problems. I can't sit here and say I killed someone and someone else helped me and the other person is on trial and not me. I can't do that. And even if I said someone else helped me, well, what evidence is there that this person helped you? Like, you could be saying that because you a jailhouse snitch. Where's the evidence? Like they said in her case with the revenge porn. Where's the evidence, right? Even if you got a confession, there got to be physical evidence. So why are we talking about breadcrumbs, Mr. State's Attorney? Circumstantial evidence, enough breadcrumbs. Come on, sir. The only crumb you got was from this man. But I digress. I do feel that Rosa's conversation over the telephone, in terms of telling her side of the story, I'm not going to say it was helpful, but I will say that it may help her in the future. She's been in jail now for a couple years. Not a lot, just a couple years. I don't even think she's been in jail. I think she might have been in jail 6 years now, like 6-7 years now. I do think that her telling her side of the story might reach the right person, like it reached me. And that may help. I've seen stories like this do that, where people get the word out, and because of that, it rolls back into court and it goes back through some things. But I'm going to be honest with you, that's something that happens often here in the United States. I don't know about Barcelona. I don't know about Spain. This is really taking me back right now. I can't believe what I'm seeing and hearing. Like, when I seen this, I had to watch this documentary 3 times, because the first time I'm like, what are you talking about? If there's no evidence, what are we talking about here? Second time I'm like, so this whole case is about the circumstance? There's nothing else here? Like, I can come up with 16 different circumstances that would fit everything that you're talking about. Like, what are we saying here? Then I found out what it really was, and that's what inspired me to say, you know what, let me make a video about this and just kind of weigh in on this just a little bit. Just because it's like, okay, what are we talking about here, right? Now, let me say this, right? Every country has had its time in what we call the Salem witch trials, right? Where women are regarded as something to be afraid of, something to criminalize simply because she's a woman. She's so vexed to kill everything, right? These old world countries like Spain, that have operated on old world philosophies even until today, is essentially what's being left in the past, and the people that are there are suffocating underneath of that past ideology. And the fact that historically people, especially women coming out of Spain, were not on the side of women, but mainly on the side of their own kind getting ahead, knowing this is what it is for them. You understand? This is what's considered insanity, for real. As women, I don't understand why Spain has had the glory days that it's had, knowing that it has treated its own citizens like this. And this right here is very light, because this is the new age stuff. Like, this is new age. This is not them, like, treating her like they're gonna burn her at the stake. No, this is new age, and you see what's happening. Trials, got male trials can have full, confessions. Female trials don't have to have any evidence, confessions, nothing, just speculative understandings, right? And they go to jail for the rest of their life. Meanwhile, men are confessing to crimes, and they won't put them in jail unless they can prove what they confessed. Like, Spain is on some shit. I'm gonna be honest with you. And this is where I will say the United States is one of the best countries in the world, because, granted, our court system is a long way from perfect, okay? But it ain't this jacked up, okay? Not this jacked up. I am glad to be an American citizen at this point. But you guys will have to take a look at the Netflix series about the Rosa Peral case and the movie Burning Body. Now, I find it interesting that there was no talk in this documentary about the actual body. They said they couldn't tell nothing from the body. They couldn't tell how the body had died, how the person died, how Pedro died. They couldn't tell how he got put into the vehicle. They couldn't tell nothing about the vehicle. There was no footage on the vehicle. There was nothing. Now, I know, because I've studied forensics, that even though there's a fire, you can find out some things even though there's been a fire. You can. But because we're talking about whoever did this was a police officer, there's some cover up. Because forget the fire. Let's talk about what we found around it. Obviously, whoever burned that body used a vehicle to leave. Ain't too many vehicles up there. There's a lot of video coverage from vehicles. It is. You see what I'm saying? And I mean, truth be told, I mean, there was a lot of investigation that just didn't happen. And I'm like, the only reason why investigations don't happen that I know of is when it's police officers, and other police officers don't really want to investigate their own. And I'm going to probably say this is what's happening over there. But, being that this is a woman and we already have this biased court system over there towards women, I mean, listen, whatever, this is not the first time something like this didn't happen. Last time something happened similar to this, there was a young lady that was a U.S. citizen traveling to Spain, I think. It was something to the order, something with Spain, or maybe that might have been Russia. I could be wrong, but I just know Spain is not Spain is not the place to be. And I'm not going to berate the point. I'm just going to say definitely watch that Netflix series and figure it out for yourselves. But in my opinion, she did not get a fair trial. I believe her. Putting myself in the circumstance, I understand why she did not report anything on either side, no matter what we were talking about, because she was in an impossible circumstance. And when people are scared, especially when they have children involved, sometimes they make decisions that are just best for their children and themselves being safe, even if it's a dumb decision. But that's not evidence that they killed someone because they were dumb. So I'm not gonna hold you guys. You guys check that out. I'll try to update the link and whatnot to this, but definitely check it out, and I will see you guys later. You guys have a good night. This was just me venting about something that I thought was important. As you know, I will come back with more information as it pops up. If this lady does get out of jail, I will definitely come and let you guys know what's happening, and probably, show some video footage. But today, I don't want to berate the point showing footage. I think when you see it once, you'll kind of understand. But I will bid you guys a good night, and I hope you guys definitely watch that. So have a good one, and Glass Straight, the Dragons. I'll talk to you guys later.